The rhythm of healing, the Octaves method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at a play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make. In strength and in stillness, our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The Octaves method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 5 of the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. I am KJ Alexander here with my co-host, Tonya Octave, and today we have a lot of important information to dive into. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and let Tonya tell a little bit more about herself and what this podcast is about.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tonya Octave, and we are going into Season 5 of Trauma and Social Work Podcasts, where we will be discussing and diving deep into my book called Heal the Mind, 7 Strategies Towards Mental Wellness, Happiness, and Success, Exploring Trauma, Mental Wellness, and Ways to Live a More Balanced Life. And before we begin, just a simple reminder that this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended for medical, psychological, mental health, or legal advice. Although I'm a licensed professional, this is not a formal type of treatment. We may talk about things like hypnosis and meditation and things that we would do in a therapeutic, from a therapeutic perspective, but it's not a form of treatment. For individual questions about your wellness, your happiness, and your success, please seek out a professional. And if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, do call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.
Great, awesome. That was amazing. So with that being said, I want to make sure I tell the audience, if you haven't already, follow this page on Spotify, YouTube, and any other platforms we post episodes on. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes in the future. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Trauma and Social Work Podcast. My name is KJ Alexander, and I'm joined once again with my co-host, Tonya Octave. And we have a very, very fun episode for you guys today. We are picking up where we left off on the last episode, and we are continuing our discussion about nutrition. And in this chapter, we're picking up talking about ways we can cut back on sugar. I know the audience is familiar with sugar is found in a lot of drinks these days, but we really want to bring some more attention to why we should be more focused on cutting back our sugar intake. So the section of the book continues to go, eating processed sugars and sodas can lead to addictive patterns. With little nutritional value, sugar is also high in calories. Foods high in sugar, sodium, and fat are related to obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. Processed foods are stripped of most nutrients. The average American child consumes 5 pounds of sugar a week. This includes starches, sugars, hydrogenated oils, artificial foods, dyes, flavoring, and salts. Most of these foods have had irradiation used on them, which is a process in which radiation eliminates mold, bacteria, and viruses, causing foods to lose their nutritional value. Sugar is an addictive substance and is often used as a sedative. Sugar promotes obesity and tooth decay and certain cancers. Try organic honey, maple syrup, or stevia during the transition period. Consumption of sugar and processed foods can cause disease. We are born with health, but by adding animal and processed foods to our bodies, we can damage the body and our health. Eating those foods can cause DNA damage as damaged cells are replicated, degenerative diseases advance, and can lead to death. Processed foods and sugar consumption are linked to an increased risk of cancer, celiac disease, and multiple sclerosis. Sugar is highly addictive and linked to a higher risk of depression, mild cognitive impairment, anxiety, all of which are treated with pharmaceutical drugs, and ADHD. It can also lead to inflammation in the body and brain. Since sugar is quicker to digest, less energy is used, leading to weight gain. In processed foods, artificial ingredients are added, which can cause health problems. Before you start to take things away, you must build up your body to succeed. Use fats, oils, and sweets sparingly. So I felt that was a very, very thorough breakdown, and you do give people some organic options to try during the transition period. But I wonder if you could speak on what exactly are the different kinds of sugars most commonly found in our diets today, and which ones should we avoid more than others?
I'd say avoid them all.
Okay.
Because I'm not
Yeah,
sure
sure.
any processed sugar is good. Really, processed sugar, and these include things like high fructose corn syrup, things like white refined sugars. Those sugars really have been linked to things like inflammation and mood swings and fatigue and these things like chronic, long time illnesses. Sugars really target these parts of the brain, creating these addictive cycles that possibly contribute or are kind of some of the underlying symptom presentation of things like anxiety and depression. And so I always tell people, when you feel like you're struggling and you're too anxious or you're too depressed, then maybe you have to look at your sugar intake, because it's one thing to use talk therapy, but if you're still inputting these things into your body, that's going to make it more difficult for you. Even in terms of heart disease, I just read an article, I think it was published around 2019, and it says because our diet, especially the American standard diet, is the sugar has increased more, that the risk of death has increased about 38 to 40%. And so when you think about like all of these processed foods, including sugars that we put in the body, it really just dysregulates the gut microbiome. There's this connection when I talk about trauma in terms of the gut and brain axis and how sugar can just activate things, but bring them out of balance. Aside from that, it also contributes to things like insulin resistance, these blood sugar spikes and crashes, and really kind of impairs our cognitive function overall. And so, like, even if you think about it, think about the things that you were given from your parent as a child. This for breakfast, the Cheerios, the processed foods like the cakes and the muffins and the donuts. Like we kind of say, some people will say, well, I don't eat a lot of sugar, but they're not really thinking about all the stuff they're eating that they're putting in their body has tons and tons of sugar. Um, Even with like soda is so bad for the body, and we're giving it to kids. And I tell parents all the time, do you ever have any plants at home? They're like, yeah. It's like, so what do you feed your plants to help it grow? Well, make sure it gets a little sunlight, and I give it water. Okay. What if you put soda in the water? What do you think would happen? It would die. So if you love your 2-year-old, if you love your 4-year-old, why are you giving him things that we know is going to cause damage? But we do it all the time as parents. Um, I don't know if you've had struggles in terms of sugar or things like with soda, but what has been like your process and your relationship with sugar?
Yeah, so definitely have grown more conscious of my sugar intake as of recently. And I think one of the biggest reasons why we have such a dependence on sugar, especially in this country, is basically because it makes our food taste better. And I think it's important to find better alternatives. So I'll give an example. So, like, for me personally, like oatmeal, I used to put a lot of sugar in my oatmeal just to kind of give it a better taste. But now I found that a lot better alternative would be to add fruit to the oatmeal. So you get a lot of natural sugars. And then also you can add honey, like you mentioned in your book, is a great alternative as an organic sweetener. So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that we kind of pick up when we're young and we start to grow an addiction to whether we realize it or not. And once we kind of start to realize that so many of the drinks and foods that we buy have sugar in it, that we can start to make a conscious decision and look for better alternatives.
You said something that stood out to me in that. We add sugar because sugar makes our food taste better. So let's dive a little bit more into that. When we put
Yeah.
refined sugars into our body, it triggers this dopamine, that brain reward chemical in our mind, and we think it makes the food make us feel better. But think of it like it's temporary. It's kind of like putting a band-aid on a wound that probably should be stitched. And when you put the band-aid on the wound, it still is exposed to environmental toxins, bacteria, and things. And without proper nurturing of it, an infection can build under the
Yeah.
wound. So, sugar, what it really does is it dulls the palate over time. It makes us less sensitive to natural flavors such as fruits and vegetables and herbs. And I think this is one of the things that I think about when I create dishes. Like, for instance, I have a arugula kind of garlic dish that I made today. And I'm thinking about if I were to offer this to someone, their palate wouldn't taste it in the way that my palate does, because their palate has been dulled by the sugars over time, over years that they have ingested into it. And what you start learning is when you start cutting back on the sugar and you start to experience these changes and natural sweetnesses in things. So when you come off a soda and let's say time has passed, and then you have another sip of soda, you like, ooh, that's like battery acid. But many years before then, you were drinking it all together. Or if
Yeah.
you come off of even processed sugars and things like that, and then let's say you have a little bit of orange juice. You're like, oh, it's so sweet. It allows the palate to get to its natural state to where the actual sweetness of food can really be enjoyed. So you can see how sweet carrots can be and how sweet apples can be, and coconut and cinnamon, and you can taste those things. And it was actually a client of mine that came in one time many, many years ago before I was still on a health journey, but not as, didn't know as much as I knew now. in terms of my body and learning about how this is all integrated. And I asked her if she wanted something to drink, and she's like, I'd like a tea. And I said, okay, so what would you like with your tea? Would you like some sugar? And she says, no, I drink my tea plain. I said, you don't drink it? Like, does it not have flavor? She says, oh, it has an abundance of flavor. I didn't know what she was talking about until I came off of the foods and started having teas in their natural state and how much more flavorful it can be. So when we have to work with that thought, because I would call that a cognitive error, that sugar makes my food taste better. The truth is, sugar makes my food sensations duller. That means in my mind, I have to crave more in order to feel satisfied. So I have to put more sugar in order to feel satisfied. And there are a lot of great things you can do in terms of coming off of sugar, but that would be one of the things to kind of like reflect on, in terms of sugar, and how can you kind of think about it differently, knowing that we've been convinced of some lies about it. And so like there are definitely some natural ways. Berries and apples and bananas and mangoes kind of have these natural sugars and fibers and antioxidants that you can really add to the body, and they really slow the glucose absorption as well. So when you're thinking about oatmeal, adding that fruit could be an option. Some people play with things like maple syrup or honey if they kind of feel like in a transition period that they might do a little bit of that to kind of help out. One of the things, I don't really eat even a lot of fruits. I'm not necessarily prone.
Okay.
My palate is like, oh, it's sweet. It's good enough for the whole week because I eat an orange and then I'm good. But sometimes if I want to make a particular dish, like with this dish, after I made it, if I were making this dish with for someone, I would probably put a little bit of more dates in it. And dates are really, really good to make for sure that you're getting organic. And they're kind of in the fig family. And so you can even kind of just open them up, remove the seed. You can cut this up and maybe sprinkle it on a salad so you're getting a little bit of it. But I actually would soak it in some water. It expands with water, and you can make a date syrup. And that can be something that you can add to like a shake, or even like you could actually put the date in a shake if you were blending it up. But you can add it. If you had the date syrup, you could do that on top of your oatmeal as an alternative. And the reasons why dates are pretty popular, although a little bit, everybody has an opinion about sugars in terms of in the vegan community, in the raw vegan community, but dates are high in fiber. They do help with blood sugar regulation. They're rich in things like magnesium, potassium, and iron. So I usually take it, being a woman, to help kind of with iron support. And it's a natural antioxidant. But, there's some different opinions about dates and things like that. They go really well when you want to make a nut milk, like an oat milk, to kind of sweeten it up a little bit, or something like that you can add to it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't even think about that. So there's ways you can kind of get the natural sugars out of these fruits and extract it and use it as a substitute for sugar, which and when you think about it, I don't think that sugar in small amounts is necessarily a bad thing. It's just unfortunate.
It is a bad thing, even in small amounts.
Well, here's the thing.
Horrible thing. It is telling your brain, let's become an addict. Do you want to control your brain, or do you want some substance to control your brain? I don't think sugar is any different than cocaine in terms of how the body sees it. The body doesn't say, oh, this is cocaine, it's bad because it's a drug one from the United States and we have some opinions and thoughts based on some stuff, versus caffeine or processed sugar, white sugar, because it's more accepted and it's appropriate for our marketing strategy, and it helps to enhance. We want to sell the idea that it's helping to enhance the taste of food. the body does not decipher the difference. The body says, oh, you put something in it. I need to react in order to try to process to get it out. And now you have changed the brain chemistry. So now I'm addicted to it. And now I'm going to start having these thoughts that start to believe that I need it in the morning. I need it to get through the day. I need it to function. I need it when I'm stressed. I need it when I'm sleepy. I need it all the time. That's the danger part, is that you become a victim of a substance versus being able to control your own life. Sugar controls people. It gives you hunger cravings. And I'll give you an example. You've heard of that term, hangry. I used to be hangry quite often. When I didn't eat, I'm like, woo, blood sugar was all over the place. And so it causes you to want to come back into this repetitive cycle where you're not controlling your body, you're not controlling your mind. And the spirit is just like observing all of this.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. I guess where I was going is just that the amount of sugar in most consumer products today is pretty much out of control, and I think that's why the creation of zero sugar drinks and sugar free drinks has become so popular recently, just because society is starting to understand the need for less sugar, less refined sugars, and these drinks. So I think we're starting to move in the right direction, but we're still not quite where we want to be on this yet. But
So
I think
even
we'll get there.
those drinks though, like those energy drinks and things like that, oh, give you energy, and we'll add something like ginseng, or we'll add something like ashwagandha. So people then are like, well, they added a term I kind of heard, so I think I'm familiar with it. It must be safe. It's not safe. Um, Even when you look at some of those energy drinks, they're banned in other countries, especially other countries that are more health conscious than us. We tend to
Yeah.
just be like, let's give everybody poison and hope they kill themselves over a long period of time so we can take all their money.
Mm, yeah. It's unfortunate, but that is definitely a reality. So you go on in your book to talk about the dangers of dairy and meat and why we should avoid these things. And you mentioned that besides cutting back sugar, you may also want to consider eliminating dairy and meat.
Mhm.
And is your stance that we should look to avoid dairy and meat completely from our diet, or just in small amounts?
So I will say with dairy consumption, we're actually talking about cow's milk. In terms
Okay.
of dairy. So if it has that cow's milk vibe or ingredient to it, that's what we're talking about in terms of dairy. What does dairy do? It increases the mucus production in the body and increases inflammation. It makes you more at risk for breakouts and acne, more at risk for hormonal imbalances and struggles with your menstrual cycle if you're a woman, whether or not you're currently or you're in premenopause. It causes even certain cancers. It's been related to prostate and breast cancer. And like my dad had prostate cancer and ended up dying from prostate cancer. And when I talk about my dairy journey in terms of the generation, I was drinking a gallon of milk a day with ice because that's what he did. And so when we look at people's lives, it's like, we don't say like, oh, prostate cancer is associated with dairy, because that part means that I have to actually go out and do my own research. Those things aren't going to be given to me in terms of advertisement and trying to convince me, because it's not a good sell. A good sell is something else, but telling the truth is not always a good sell. And so, most of the population, they say over half of the population really is lactose intolerant. So would I say you shouldn't be on dairy? You have to make that choice. How do you feel about your health? Is your body important to you? And read some more about what dairy does, because dairy was a struggle for me to give up. So I have compassion for that. But I would say become educated, and you probably, once you start reading, will discover how bad it is. I don't need to convince you of it. And the thing with like meats, some people are naturally inclined in terms of either their belief systems or they feel about their body that they have to have meat. They have to have a particular source of protein. What I will say about meat is, make for sure that it's organic and, um, maybe the animals are kept with humane practices in terms of eating, but that's not always, and that is not what you're going to get at fast food or in a
Mm,
restaurant. Those places, unless they are specific, this is an organic beef, you're not going to get that at most places.
yeah.
So know that when you eat meat, it probably should be at home when you're cooking versus when you're out. Taking into consideration red meat and processed meats like beef, pork, and bacon, they're classified as a group 1 carcinogenic. I don't know why people don't understand that. Like
Yeah.
red meat, and that is like beef, pork, and bacon. They're in a group 1 for being a carcinogenic, and they've been linked to things like um, cancers, like colorectal cancer, things like that. So I would think of, like, if you were eating meat, wouldn't you also want to think about, like, are you contributing to cancer cells being activated in the body? Those are things you have to ask yourself in terms of your journey and how you feel you want to show up in the world. But I mean, aside from that, all animal products have been linked to higher rates of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's. I mean, all of these reports aren't even new reports. This research is long-standing research. This isn't new research.
Mm,
This is years and years of research. American Standard Diet, we spend more money than most nations. I think we're in the top 3 in terms of our medical care, and we have the most diseased population. We have to think about why that is and where that is coming from.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think a part of the reason why that is due to the fact there's a lot of misinformation out there about meat and dairy. And you do a great job of breaking down some of the myths in this chapter. Like, for example, there's a thing that usually is said about milk that is good for strong bones and help building
Mhm.
strong bones. And you mentioned in the book that calcium in dairy is actually linked to weakened bones. So that is a direct contradiction for what we've been told about dairy. And even things
Actually,
like,
it states if you drink dairy, for women, if they had dairy consumption during adolescence, they're more likely to get osteoporosis.
mm, oh wow,
Osteoporosis is your bones become fragile for women as you age, particularly for women who age after menopause stages, for a variety of reasons. I suspect one of them is what was that research reported in terms of the dairy consumption. So even for our adolescent girls, and they're playing sports or they're trying to be active, or maybe not as much. Maybe they're just like at home, on their phone or whatever. In terms of that, but if we're giving them dairy, we're not thinking about what will happen in 50 years and what we're setting their physical body, their bone structure up for. So these are things to consider, but we live in a world and we are always in this place of chaos that these type of things often take too much energy because we're often in chaos and we're often dealing with so much more that this is often what we know how to do. So when we're stressed and cortisol is being released in the body, we may go to dairy. It does some things in the brain in terms of making it feel like there's a calming sensation
mm,
occurring. And so that is another part of the addictive process. Um, and so there are some great substitutes. I mean, especially now. I mean, you can have nut melts. There's all kind. You can do an almond, a cashew, hazel. You can put those in your teas, in your coffees, and you can, even now some places give different options. So start exploring some of the different options. Switch to a coconut yogurt. I really like coconut yogurt. I have it maybe once every 2 weeks, and maybe like add some, maybe like a berry or maybe like a seed to it if you wanted a crunch, kind of things like that. For your meats, you could do the lentils, like we did things on lentils and sprouting lentils or baking lentils into like a patty, or chickpeas or tofu, even nuts and seeds. Like there are so many options in terms of proteins. Mushrooms are also great in terms of a texture, and even in terms of like flavor if you wanted like in an Asian dish, or even like in a burger dish. So you can really kind of play with things and still have a familiar association with food, but just really kind of considering other healthier alternatives to that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that is very important for us to start doing as a society. Look for safer, healthier alternatives to what we have currently in our diet. And you mentioned in the next section that water is vital to good health. And I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I do appreciate you listing out options that such as coconut water, mineral water, spring water, glacier water, and alkaline water. Water can be sparkling, distilled, purified, flavored, or infused, and that you should drink water as your primary liquid. And I think that is very important to highlight because too many people treat water as something that is secondary.
I think
And
the internet disrupted a little bit. Could you
oh,
just
hold
repeat
on.
what you said?
All right, can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah, I
yeah.
can hear you.
So yeah,
What was
basically,
the part that you read? Uh-huh.
I was just saying that more people should treat water as their primary liquid instead of a secondary liquid, and just listing the different options you included. Me personally, I do enjoy coconut water. Not really too big on mineral water. Um,
It's a
Alkaline water, of
little
course, is good. Yeah,
acquired
yeah,
taste. But once you
for
get rid of
sure.
all that other stuff, you'll start drinking mineral water. You'll be like, okay, I can deal with it now, because your taste buds will go back to its natural state instead of being
Yeah.
in an infected state.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll say, me personally, ever since I started drinking a lot more water, I don't really have a desire to drink sodas and things like that. I still may every now and then, but it doesn't really do the same thing it used to for me. So I mainly keep water as my primary
When
fluid,
you
which
have
I
it in these,
encourage.
when you have like a soda or a drink that you wouldn't normally do you feel anything in terms of when you ingest it in the body?
Yeah, so I can really only drink small amounts. Like I don't think I could drink a full can of soda just by myself, but definitely I would say after a two or three drinks, I definitely will feel the sugary syrupness to it, and it's refreshing when it's cold and you're thirsty, but after that initial thirst is quenched, it kind of just turns into like a syrupy taste for me personally,
Okay.
and yeah, so but that's just me.
One of the things I noticed when my taste buds started to change, I didn't like coconut water at first. And then
Yeah.
I noticed I would only drink it when I was exercising and sweating a lot. Then I could drink a lot of it. And then I went to a stage where I started liking it, but more cold. But now I'm at a stage now I can drink it cold or at room temperature, and I don't have to exercise. So now I can drink it in all environments. But even with coconut water, there was a stage for me. Um, One, I didn't grow up with coconut water. I actually didn't drink coconut water at all in my life until maybe 7 years ago.
Okay.
I never experimented with coconut water or anything like that. So that taste, it took a while, but as my taste buds were changing, it went through a transition. And the part that I liked about myself that I gave myself is, although I didn't like it at first, I knew how it was in terms of benefits and the electrolytes that it could provide. I didn't stop and I continued, and I'm proud of myself for doing that, because that meant that I made a choice that even though I didn't like something, I knew it was healthy because I
Mm,
read the truth about it, not like just
yeah.
watching lies about it. And that encouraged me to really kind of work, and now I'm kind of enjoying it in a different way.
Yeah, and I think me too. I think as well, it really helps to get to the true information about these things. That way, subconsciously and consciously, you can make a decision on what is right for you personally. So,
So let me ask you this question. You're in like your mid 20s. How old do you want to live?
Um, well, I mean, ideally, I would hope to reach at least my early 90s.
Okay.
If anything more than that, I would consider it to be a blessing.
Okay. So you're kind of thinking about, because I don't know, like young people, I don't know if they always think about longevity, but there's maybe an idea like, I think I can get to 90. Um, and I know that, there are these documentaries on blue zones. And I became fascinated because my goal is 120. And that's only been kind of recently because before I never really had a goal. I'm like, well, if I make it to next year, then great.
Yeah.
So now I've kind of set the goal like at 120. So then I start searching like how do dogs, how do cats get to what would be considered their centennial age and then how do humans get to that, right? And so they have these things called blue zones and studies where people have gone on and studied these people who have lived past 100 and looked at their diet. 90 to 95% are based on plant items. So that means in blue
Mm.
zones they're eating legumes and whole grains, probably more grown than less processed, but fruits and vegetables and nuts. They eat very little meat, maybe 2 to 4 times a month, almost no dairy. There's a regular consumption of things like sweet potatoes and beans. Olive oil is, I've read about that in a couple of places. And I think olive oil is great it really, you got to get the processing, know the company, and kind of understand a little bit more about what makes olive oil healthy for you. And then how to ingest it in ways where the body will receive it as a medicine, and not react as a form of poison. That means that the body has to attack it in some way. That they eat slowly and that they eat socially. Those are the things that I work on because often I eat alone and I've been working on eating a little bit slower, but my pattern has typically been fast. Um, and so, even with that, there's like this movement, there's a community connection, and really a sense of purpose. So, I don't care what age you are, ask yourself right now, what would be ideal for you? What is an ideal age that you want to get to? And if that's 90, are the things that you putting in your body going to get you there? Or they're going to make you have a disease state and get there? Because I'm not talking about being 100 in a wheelchair and having a breathing machine. I'm going to be 100 riding a bike. I'll probably do a cartwheel maybe once or twice, probably not that too much because I don't like conversion stuff. I'm a swim, I'm a read. I want to be able to have my eyesight, my hearing. I want to still maybe have some driving mobility if I choose to. And so, like, what choices am I making now outside of an accident? Because at the end of the day, it's all kind of under God's, direction anyways. But what choices am I making today to get me to that age? Or am I making choices because I'm stuck, because I'm suffering, because relationships are bad, because I can't get beyond taking care of me because I'm so consumed with taking care of everybody else.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
I would say that as a point of reflection for our audience.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a good place for us to leave it for today's episode.
I have
Very
one other thought.
informative. Oh, go ahead. Absolutely.
It just comes to me because I think of like true nourishment comes from these real, hold, and conscious choices. I talk a little bit about how when I work with people on weight in terms of the subconscious mind and unconscious mind, how that plays a role in it. But whether it's it's a date, make it a date instead of a donut. Make it a glass of mineral enriched water instead of soda. Go for the plant based meal instead of the heavy meats. Because every small step is an investment in your healing and in your journey and emotional clarity and Are you moving towards wellness, happiness, and success? Or are the choices you making you bringing you closer to a disease state, closer to fatigue, closer to insomnia? Because your body is giving you all the information you need to see. It's just whether or not you're listening, or are you so distracted by something outside of yourself? Those are my closing reflections.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a great perspective for our audience to consider. And I'm sure a lot of people found this episode very informative. But that is all the time we have for today. I want to appreciate everyone for tuning in. And and also, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. And we have more videos coming out in the future. We don't want you guys to miss. But that is all. And any information you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up?
Just those closing arguments about processed foods and dairies and meats. This really is your choice. We are not here to have you go either way. We're just here to give you another voice, another point of reflection, and a consideration about where you want to go. Is that on your wellness journey, or is that on an illness journey?
Absolutely. And we'll leave it right there for now. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. And until next time, everyone, be safe, be healthy, and bye bye.
Bye. Wraps up another episode. I hope today's discussion provided clarity and tools you can use in your daily life. If you're ready to take the next step in the healing journey, I'd love to connect. Head over to my website to schedule a free 15-minute consultation. It is a great opportunity to ask questions and see how we can work together. And while you're there, download my complimentary workbook designed to help you reflect, grow, and move towards mental wellness, happiness, and success. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next time. The Rhythm of Healing, the Octaves Method. O is for observation, through stillness we find meditation and breath work that quiet the mind. In silence we listen, the answers are clear, awareness emerges, dissolving the fear. C is for compassion, for self and for all, embracing the good, the struggles, the fall. With kindness we grow, we nurture, we mend, learning to love ourselves as we extend. T is for therapy, a path we explore. Daily we practice unlocking the door. From journaling to mindfulness, healing begins. Each step is a victory as peace settles in. A is for animals and laughter so bright, like children at play, their joy taking flight. With playfulness and movement, we rediscover the way to heal through the fun that we often delay. V is for victuals, nourishing and pure, detoxifying the body and keeping us sure. We choose what we eat with intention and grace, fueling our journey at our own pace. E is for exercise, where movement is free. We stretch and we bend in sweet harmony. Flexibility grows with choices we make, in strength and in stillness, our bodies awake. S is for socialize, where self-growth begins. Others reflect our triggers and the places within. Through relationships, our true selves we find, growing and healing with each tie that binds. The Octaves Method, where all behavior makes sense. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents. We just need to find the sense it presents.